Hey everybody, this is your Junior Resource Speculator editor, Gerardo Del Real. I stay excited, but I am really excited to have you with me today. This is our very first call-in for Junior Resource Speculator, and it's a heck of a day, right? Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Gold is at record highs. It just touched the $2,500 level for the very first time in history. And if we step back and we look at gold in other currencies, it's making new all-time highs, obviously, in multiple currencies. So we're going to talk about the macro, right? We're definitely going to get into gold and uranium and lithium and copper and silver and where I think they head. And then we're going to talk about what's working. And then, we're transparent around here. We're going to talk about what's not working and why it isn't working. Then, of course, I'm going to break down all of the positions and give you my brief take on each of them. This idea was brought forth by several of you subscribers. So I want to thank you for that. I think it's a way to keep me accountable, and it's also a way to make myself available to you so that I'm answering the questions that you have as opposed to just writing as to a general audience, right? I love being able to get more one-on-one. So thank you all again for making this possible and for tuning in. Let's get to it. Look, gold is at $2,500. And if you are newer to the junior resource space, or if this is your first cycle, right? I believe we are most definitely at the very early stages of a commodity super cycle. If this is your first time experiencing that, you're probably asking yourself, well, hey, Gerardo, great, gold's at $2,500. Woohoo. Why are most of my gold positions, especially the speculative one, right? This is called Junior Resource Speculator. Why are my speculative positions not reaching new all-time highs? So let's talk about gold first off. Gold being at $2,500, it's important psychologically, but technically it's really important to know the drivers of what got it to 2,500 and why it's going much higher. First off, jewelry demand is off some 3 or 4% from last year because of those high prices. However, the BRIC countries have really made it an effort and a strategy to hedge their currencies by adding to their gold reserves. And that has more than made up for the decline in jewelry demand. And it's also more than made up for the outflows that we were seeing from Western countries, central banks, right? The ETFs, the central banks. The bottom line is the US and the central banks in the Western countries haven't really participated up until this past quarter in any meaningful way. And that's going to change when we look at the dollar index and we see that it was as high as 106 recently. And now we see a pullback to 102. And I think soon we break that 100 level again. And that's important because obviously gold ultimately, it makes for great jewelry, right? But ultimately what it is it's money. It's one of the few instruments in the world where there is no counterparty. And so it's a way to hedge against the debasement of the currency. And if we know anything, we know government is irresponsible as it relates to spending. We have a debt of about 35 trillion. We are paying about $1 trillion a year in interest. Regardless of what you feel, how you feel politically and what you feel about the political process, the bottom line is both of the leading candidates for the presidency this fall are promising you more spending, right? Whether that's through the financing of wars. Ms. Harris would like to provide a $25,000 credit to first-time home buyers as a down payment, which of course is just going to make homes $25,000 more expensive, right? She would also like to provide several other carrots. And when she says that the government wants to provide it, the government isn't providing it. That's coming from taxpayers like myself. And so that's one side, right? And on the other side, the Trumpster, Mr. Trump, he wants to create a Bitcoin reserve and he wants to have influence over monetary policy. Well, who do you think is going to pay for that Bitcoin reserve? Is it, I mean, it's finite, right? They're finite. I'm no crypto expert. That's Mr. Chris Curl. But I know that the money to pay for that reserve has to come from somewhere. And so whichever party you align with or identify with, the goal of this service is to make money. And the bottom line is both of them are going to continue the spending that has got us to this point. So gold is headed much higher. The Western ETFs and the central banks are starting to get involved. I think they're going to get involved in a more meaningful way. And that bodes well for us moving forward as far as the speculative gold positions. Now, let's talk about what's working. What's working is the companies that are producers that are leveraged to the price of gold that are being fiscally responsible and actually operating at a profit and expanding those margins. There's actually very few of those, but the few that are doing that are hitting new 52-week highs.